welcome everybody to another episode of Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate, a journey of emotional resilience. We're here today with another journey segment. Really looking forward to this one. We have Laura Manning from Perth, Australia, who's going to share a really inspiring story of dealing with some mental health issues and autoimmune arthritis issue, and just her experiences of going through that, and what her recoveries look like and what she's doing today. We met through Instagram, so this is the first time I really get to hear her story and experience it. I'm really looking forward to it. So welcome, Laura, and how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, I'm good. I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to have you. I know, like we were kind of talking before, I always get a little nervous as well. So, I'm right there with you. And just really honored that you're coming on to share your experience and your story. I know you do some of this as well through your own Instagram, and you have an Instagram with your niece, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So I love that you're bringing awareness and willing to kind of put your story out there and put yourself out there in a vulnerable way to spread, mental health awareness.
Thank you.
Yeah. So kind of, just jumping right into it, what was, kind of what was your life like growing up? Did you notice those early signs of mental health, and how did that kind of start to develop for you?
So, so mental health has been a big part of my whole life. So when I was younger, my mum has a lot of her own trauma, and she has struggled with a lot of her own mental health problems. So my mum has bipolar, and she has borderline personality disorder. So when I was younger, she was always struggling. So she would either be extremely depressed, and so when my mom was depressed, because she was on a lot of medication as well, which made her like really tired. So she would be depressed, and usually this would go for months and months at a time, and she would be in bed basically the whole time. Yeah, she would literally stay in her bedroom. And then she would have her mania, and usually it would just be one day she would come home from school and she's out of bed, and she would be going shopping and just doing all this erratic stuff. When I was really young, I thought that was cool. I was like, yeah, she's going shopping again, like we're getting all this stuff, and it was all exciting. As I got older, I realized that it wasn't a good thing, and obviously that would make me nervous. Um, but she also she would go, usually I think maybe towards like the end of her manias, she would go psychotic. So she would get very paranoid. She would be, she's just like in a psychosis basically. And it was really intense. It would be scary. Sometimes it would end, police would be coming, sometimes to take her away, sometimes to take other people away. It was always crazy stuff going on. And then usually she would end up in the hospital, in the mental health ward for usually a few months. I think there was a few times where it was like closer to like 4 to 6 months she would be in there. Um, Sometimes when she was in there, we would go see her, we would talk to her. Sometimes when she was in there, she wouldn't want to talk to us. So that was really hard. Um, so me and my mom have always had a very close relationship. So we always had a really special bond, and yeah, it was just really hard. Um,
Was that, when you were younger and seeing that, when did you start to realize like there was something wrong with your mom? Was it something you knew early on, or did that not come until later on where you really started to understand what was going on with her?
I don't really know because I have like my memory is so bad. So I feel like majority of my life I don't remember. I only remember like chunks. And it's interesting because I've got two brothers and a sister, and me and one of my brothers, we both have this memory thing where we don't remember much. And one of my sister and my other brother, they both remember everything. So they fill in the gaps sometimes. And they'll tell me things and I'm like, whoa, like how do I not remember this? Like even when they're talking about it, I just have no recollection of it at all. But I remember like my mum would always talk, like she was very open with us about her mental health. And so I just remember being really young and knowing what bipolar was and knowing what was happening. And I guess it was very erratic, like even though she would be like there was a lot every day it was just chaos all the time. So it was very obvious that something was not right. But I think even though I knew that there was all these issues going on, it was still my life, so it was in a way normalized. So I knew that it was hard and I knew that it was difficult, but I didn't know maybe how different my life was to a lot of other people, like a lot of the other kids I was going to school with and stuff. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. And
yeah.
it's kind of what I was wondering if that was something that you realized might have been different from other people and what they were experiencing at home and what you were experiencing at home. Um,
Mm.
yeah, but
I definitely felt, yeah, like as I started growing, like as I started growing up, I definitely started noticing like, oh my God, like I'd go to friends because we used to move house, we'd move school all the time, and I'd move to a new school, make new friends. They always invite me over, and then like, whoa, like, oh my God, like look at their house and their family, it's so different. And like, I definitely remember that time when I was like, I'm so different to them. Like my life is so different, and I found it very hard to connect with people like friends when I was younger because um, their life was a lot different to mine. And especially when I was really young, like I wouldn't really want to tell them what was going on in my life because it was pretty crazy. And it would have been pretty scary to them, to be honest. Like I wasn't gonna talk, yeah, like these things were very intense. Like it's not anything you're gonna be telling other children about. So it was really hard.
yeah, and kind of for you, when did you start feeling some of those things in life? Or was it early on? Did it not, mental health things or issues, was it kind of early on for you, or did you feel any different when you were younger, or did that not come until a little bit later?
Definitely. Like I said, I can't remember a lot of my childhood, and like some of my family, like they'll tell me like, oh, because my daughter Ella is a lot like me, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, she's so cool and like confident, and like some of my family will be like, you were like that, and I'm like, no, I was not. I was so quiet. I was so like I had the worst anxiety. I just wanted to be invisible, I just wanted to be invisible. I didn't want anyone to see me. Um, but there must have been a time in my life where I was more like happy and confident and free. But definitely like very early on, like at least maybe like from about 8, if not before, I had a deep, deep sadness, like a very intense sadness inside of me, and I felt very disconnected. I felt very alone. I felt very like no one will understand how I'm feeling. I just felt, yeah, I felt I was struggling from a very young age.
Yeah, and I can really relate to that. Um, and that's a really good way to put it. As you were saying that, I was just thinking, I always have a hard time explaining. I always just say I felt different when I was younger, because I have a hard time explaining really what I felt, but disconnected, and a deep sadness. I would really relate to that when I was younger, and I never really knew how to handle it or what exactly it was. And I think it's it's difficult when you're at a younger age and you don't fully understand. You're still trying to figure out just what life is and emotions are, and all these different things around you. So then when you feel something like that, I feel like it's really hard to pinpoint. And I thought you just did a really good job of putting, of describing those type of feelings, especially when you're younger.
Mm. Yeah, I remember even being like at school, like primary school age, and I remember I would like see all the other girls like running around and they were laughing and smiling, and I remember like watching them and just thinking like, I want to smile like that one day. Like I want to feel, like I could feel that, I could see their smile, you can feel the joy, and I just remember like looking at them and like, I want to feel like that, you know? And I always would think that. Like, and I remember I just like, I couldn't even smile. I felt like when I would smile, it was not real. There was no real smile, because I didn't have, the sadness was so intense that I couldn't feel like joy. Even like there was good times where I had fun and whatnot, but I still had that deep sense of sadness, like kind of, I guess, like overshadowing any good times that I had. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of how did that continue to develop for you as you started to get older and maybe understood it a little bit more, recognized it a little bit more?
Um, so it just got worse, really. And I think the difficult thing is because my mum was still she's still struggling now. And so while I'm dealing with my own problems, feeling my own issues, I'm also dealing with this chaos in my world every day. Like my whole world was chaos every day. And even when I moved out of home, the chaos was still there. So it just like I didn't know what was going on. Like I knew I'm struggling and it's hard. I didn't know if I was ever gonna get out of this chaotic life that I was in. But I knew I wanted to, and I just like kept trying. And so I remember when I was like started being a teenager, that's when things got really difficult because I started becoming, because there was a lot of drugs as well, a lot of drugs around, and I wasn't aware of that, but like when I was young. So it wasn't until I was a teenager that I was like, okay, well, like there is a drug problem here, and then that brought up a whole lot of stuff. And then I started getting really angry. I was just like, I just started getting really angry, and I was like, I was sad, I was angry, I had all these emotions, and I don't know, I just had to just keep pushing through and struggling, and I'm just trying to do my best. And then I moved out of home when I was 17, and I thought that was gonna um help, but it didn't. I think it just got worse. It just kept getting worse and worse. And I was working and I had a good job and I was like trying so hard, but I was just coming home and just crying all the time and just having these horrible things going through my head, and just having this feeling of like, this is never, ever, ever going to end. Like, how am I ever, ever going to get out of this? It was so intense that I just couldn't ever see like a way out. And um that's how it was for a really long time. And so backtracking, actually, when I was about 14, I started smoking weed. And I smoked weed every day until I was 22. And that was, I guess, yeah, my way of self-medicating. And I would just smoke weed to just numb my pain, and it did help to an extent. Um, but I became very like reliant on the weed, and I would be very like, yeah, I had a really strong addiction. So like if I didn't have the weed, I was like, I need to get the weed. And I would always get the weed. It was not an option of like, I would just it would always, yeah, I would always get it. Um, and yeah. And then what happened, it was, yeah, just getting worse and getting worse. And then in my early 20s, I ended up quitting my job. I couldn't take it anymore. And all this time I'm trying my best to, I want to do better. You know, I'm working, like I wasn't smoking weed in the day. I was like exercising. I'm going to the doctors, trying to reach out for help. I'm really generally doing my everything I felt like I could to better myself. I felt like a lot of doctors, they never took me seriously. I think because I struggled from such a young age, I am very good at still doing life while suffering so intensely that I think they would be like, well, you're going to work, you're doing this. Like, you know, it's obviously not that bad. And it was really bad. So in my early 20s, I ended up just having a complete mental breakdown. I quit my job. I would then get a new job, and then I would work for a few days and I would be crying at this new job. I'd be sitting in the car, like I couldn't even get up into the office. I'm just like, I remember one new job and the boss had come down because I couldn't get out of my car. And then he's trying to help me get up in there. And I'm just thinking, what is going on? You know, like this is just so embarrassing. And just I couldn't get out of my car to go into this job. Um, and there was about 6 months where, yeah, I was just like, I don't even know what was happening. I sold my car. I couldn't drive because I was so anxious that I was terrified of driving all of a sudden. And I was like, I'll sell my car. I'm never going to need it again. I'll never drive again. Um, I was just spiraling and spiraling. And then, so I always had suicidal feelings and thoughts. Like for as long as I can remember, I've always had that thought where I just wish I could just die, like take me out of this world, you know, like, but I always knew that I wouldn't because I have my brothers and my sister and I love them so much. And I just know, like, you know, like they have been through all the same things that I have. They've suffered enough, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to put them through that, you know? And sometimes I just would think like, oh my God, I just, you know, like I just want to. I wish I could. I wish I didn't love them so much that I could have just done it. Um, so I always had these suicidal thoughts and feelings. And then it was that when I was having this breakdown, I got to the point where I was like, this is it. Like I'm actually done. I am completely and utterly done. Um, and it was a very impulsive thing as well. But I was losing my mind. And I ended up taking a bunch of pills that I had, and I took the whole bottle. And I didn't count, you know, because it was all just like in the moment. And I took the whole bottle. In my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, like, because I never like looked into how do you overdose. I just had seen my mum do it a lot of times, and I was like, all right, so there's a big bottle full of pills, so I'm just going to take them all, and that's going to be it. So I did that. And I was ready. I was like, this is my time. Um, I ended up being taken to the hospital. Um, I don't really remember much because I was like all drugged up, but I woke up and I was like in like a straight jacket thing, or like tied down, and I had security all around me, and I think I must have been like causing some sort of scene. I don't really know. It was all a bit of a blur, but I remember, so I woke up from this, and I remember the nurse when I woke up, and she said to me, she's like, Laura, what were you doing? Like, what are you doing? And I said, I want to die. I'm trying to kill myself. Like, I took the bottle of pills and I was hoping I would be dead right now. And this lady was like, well, you didn't take enough pills. So you wouldn't have died. And I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was like kind of laughing while she's saying this to me, like looking down on me, just like, you didn't even take enough pills. Um, you obviously weren't trying to commit suicide, and basically insinuating that I'm just trying to cause a scene, you know? And I just looked at this lady and I just looked at her and I'm just thinking, like, you have no fucking idea. Like, I am at my lowest of my lows. Like, and you just pushing me down even. It was just horrible. And I'm just thinking in my mind, like, I feel so alone, like, and the people who were meant to help me, they don't want to help me. After I saw this lady, I was finally because during this whole psychotic breakdown thing I was having, all I wanted was to get into the mental health hospital. I didn't feel safe. I felt like I desperately needed help. I knew I needed help. During the time, I was reaching out to all these services, desperately asking for help, but no one was taking me seriously. And then I wanted to be in the mental health hospital, and finally I'm getting triaged in the hospital. This was my chance to get in, but after my experience with this nurse, I just felt like I can't trust these people. And I just kind of just told them I was okay, and I left. And yeah, that was it was pretty devastating.
Yeah,
But it made me realize that, like, I need to help myself, at this point. I don't know, no one's going to help me, and I just have to help myself. I
and
don't know.
I mean, that sounds, you know, horrifying and exhausting going through all of that. And just what you mentioned with the nurse looking at you and saying that, is heartbreaking, because I think sometimes when people do go through those moments when they desperately need help, others sometimes look at that as like, just pull it together, or that you're just seeking attention, or like you said, trying to cause a scene or whatever it may be. And that's you describing how you felt in that moment, I think shows how important it is to take those moments seriously with people, because it does just push people further and further down. And I really appreciate you sharing that aspect, because that's, I hear that. I've heard that a lot at times, that some people don't even know how to react, 'cause they think people are just doing it to seek attention, or just doing it to say it because other people say it. And so I think, it's so important to be really sensitive in those moments, and really try to help somebody going through it. And I wanted to ask you, as you were going through a lot of this, did you have, much support? I know you've mentioned your siblings. Did they know what was going on? Did you have somebody that you were able to talk through for this, or were you going through a lot of this, alone, keeping those feelings inside?
So a lot of it alone. So my siblings were struggling in their own way. And so, like, for me growing up, I was always like the one looking after them. So I have an older brother, and he always looked after me, but he struggled. He struggled in his own way, and I kind of looked after my younger brother and sister. I was like the mum to them, and I would consider them my own children. Like, when I was younger, like, I was always looking after them. So I never was going to put that on them. And they were still young, like, they were still young. They were still just dealing with their own stuff. So I don't think I would have been talking to them at all about any of that stuff at that point. And because they, even though they're not that much younger than me, I think I had to grow up a lot sooner than they did. So there was kind of like that gap, I guess, with the age. And then so I had my mom was struggling herself. She wasn't able to be there for me. Even when I took these pills, she was there. She didn't want to come to the hospital because it was too hard for her. My partner, who's the dad to my kids, he was there, and he always supported me. But he was young as well. Like, we were both young, and he has had his own trauma in his life, and so he definitely supported me as much as he could. But he could only do what he could, and it was terrifying for him. I think even this instance, like, this was traumatizing for him. because he couldn't help me, you know. And then I have, yeah, so I have a few people, but it was pretty much doing a lot of this on my own. And I definitely didn't have any help from like medical or like anything like that. Like I hadn't, I tried to reach out to do things like counseling and stuff, but it just never happened. There was always, it was too expensive, or like, I don't know, it wasn't easily available to me when I needed it. And I think when you really need help, it's very hard to jump through all the hoops to go and get it, you know? Like they can, like, I think it's a lot different now, but back then, like, it was very hard to get any help. And I didn't have the strength to be fighting to get the help that I needed. Even before this suicide attempt, my friend, her mum, she was taking me to all these organizations. Like all these organizations are helping people in crisis, but nothing was coming out of it. And I don't know why, because I don't really know what was going on, because I was just like, I was struggling to just breathe. Like, yeah. So yeah, I felt very alone.
Yeah, no, it's I can really relate to that part about trying to find help. And it's kind of crazy that when we're in these moments of desperation, in these moments where we need that support, or for me it was rehab. We need that right away. It can be so hard to actually then access it and get into it. I know when I came back to my parents' house from the city I was in, where my life was falling apart. They were doing, this was right before I got clean. I was finally going to go to rehab, and I think I ended up staying at my parents' house for about 2 or 3 weeks. Before we found a rehab place that I could actually get into and access, and that we could afford, and all those type of things. And so it's kind of crazy to think about, because in that 3 weeks or 2 weeks, or those moments you're talking about, it doesn't take much to then run away from that help, to stop seeking help, and to stop trying to find it. So it's crazy to think about sometimes that it can be a really difficult thing, and when it seems like in reality it should be pretty easy to access some of these resources that are available at times.
Yeah. It blows my mind, to be honest. I just think like, yeah. That I actually just remembered as well. There was one time before this that I went to the emergency, and I was in a crisis situation as well, and I was having the most unbearable anxiety. Like I could not, it's just like when it happens, it's just adrenaline that goes in my body, and it's so unbearable. I can't deal with the feeling. And I went to the emergency department, and I went up to the counter, and I was like, I need help, I need help. And they were like, okay, go sit down, go sit down and, wait for like 5, 7 hours, however long. And I was like, look, I need help. I can't sit down there. I was like, I literally want to run on the road right now. Like, I need help. I knew there's no way I was able to sit in that chair for 5 hours. And the lady was just like, just so dismissive. And anyway, they took me through, I guess, because they have to, because I said that. And then I'm sitting on a chair in the emergency, just on a chair in the waiting room, and I finally got seen. And as well, the ladies were like, they said to me, why couldn't you sit and wait like everyone else has to? Something like that. And I'm just looking at her like, are you fucking serious? Like, and it just infuriates me, because I just like, you don't understand how hard I've tried every single day. Like every single day of my whole life that I can remember, I have been trying, and I'm trying, and I'm trying, and I'm trying, and I can't do it anymore. I'm finally screaming out for help, and you're pushing me away. Like, and yeah, that was horrible. And when these things happen, I just think, how many other people is this happening to? Like, I'm surely not the only one. This would be happening to so many people all the time. And it's also happened with my arthritis. The same things happen when I've had to reach out for help with that. Um, the same thing, they just don't take it seriously, and they're not understanding the intensity of like my pain that I'm in right now, whether that's emotional or physical.
Yeah, and you kind of just bringing that up. When did that start really coming into play? Your arthritis, and how did that start to affect, now that you're having all these physical issues as well, how did that combine to, with those mental health issues?
Um, well, yeah. So I have ankylosing spondylitis, which is an autoimmune type of arthritis. So it's similar to rheumatoid arthritis, but it mainly attacks your spine and sacroiliac joints, but it affects your whole body. And so basically, when I was younger, I would just get random things. Like when I was 14, I woke up one day and I was covered in hives. And I don't know if it's all related, but I feel like it is. And I had years I was just spent covered in hives and they didn't know what it was. I started getting problems with my eyes. I used to work in an office and I just had all this pain in my eyes. I couldn't see properly, but like I would get them tested and they were fine. Um, and then my back started hurting. And my back would start hurting and it would get really bad and it would come and it would last for months at a time. Um, and it would get really, really bad and then it would go. And this would just come and go and come and go. And when it was happening, it was getting really bad. And I was like, oh my God, I need help. I'm going to the doctors, like something is wrong with my back, like what's going on? But then it would go. Um, and then it just all started getting worse. And then it was after I had my son, he's 6 now, that it just kind of exploded and I had pain in my hip. I was just getting I was having nerve pain in my arms. I felt like my arm was being like just completely pulled off, like someone's trying to rip my arm off. My legs, just like unbearable pain in so many different ways. I was getting even nerve pain. Like I would get like feelings of like cold water like dripping down my face and my arm and like numbness and um my whole body just lost it. I don't know, but yeah, but the pain just got unbearable. So I finally got diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis like 3 years ago now, I think. And it's a lot better now because I take medication and I look after myself. But yeah, but it's been very difficult. But the same kind of thing, like reaching out, I knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong for like 10 years in my body. And I get extremely tired. Like the fatigue is just unbearable. But you can't do anything about it. And you just have to push through this incredible, debilitating fatigue because you need to, like you need to work. We need money, like life goes on. But I'm reaching out to doctors and I'm crying. I'm like, something is wrong with me. And they're just like, no, you're fine. Like your tests are all fine. Everything's fine. I think, you need to sleep more and you've got kids and you're overtired. And I'm just like, oh my God. But it was, yeah, they finally figured out what was going on. But I do think now probably my trauma has like a lot to do with me having this autoimmune problem. And I'm learning a lot about how trauma stores in your body. And I'm starting to like really learn about that and like doing yoga, and I've been doing different things, and I'm hopeful that like one day once I, more of my trauma is released, then a lot of my pain and problems will go away. Who knows? So
Yeah, you know, that's a lot to go through. Not only, with the dealing with those physical things, but obviously the situations you were in, the mental health battles you were facing. Was there a moment that I know you had just talked about, like, reaching out for help and having that breakdown, and was there a moment where, or moments where it got really bad, and then that's when you started seeing some type of change, or things started to get better? But where was there, like, that rock bottom moment, or those darkest moments where that you hit before you started seeing some of the growth that you're having today?
Mm, definitely. So the first, I guess, moment would have been, so after I had this big break breakdown, when I, did the suicide thing. That was when I was 22, and then it was just after then I fell pregnant with my daughter, and I was wanting to have a baby. Me and my partner were trying to have a baby for like maybe 6 or 8 months before then. It wasn't happening, and all of a sudden, while I'm in this horrible, horrible state, I fell pregnant, and that was a huge, like, turning point in my life. Um, and it was like the first time for me that I felt have a purpose. And I felt like, even when I was pregnant, I just felt that love from her. And I remember when I had my daughter, and I would just hold her, and I just, like, the way that she would look up at me, and I just was like, oh my God, like, this little human being, like, she loves me. She loves me, and she loves me, for who I am. And that for me was like life changing. And I was like, yeah, it was like that kind of the first point in my life where I was like, it's okay to be me, like, this beautiful, amazing little person thinks I'm amazing. So obviously there is a part of me that is amazing. And so this was, yeah, so that was huge for me. But I still struggled. And so it was like definitely a point in my life when I started to feel joy and really feel loved and feel love for her. And it was just beautiful. But then I still had all of that sadness. I still was struggling. And I was kind of doing pretty good. But then when I had my son, I love him obviously just as much, but I think the pressure of having two children made it all a lot difficult. And then, yeah, I was kind of really struggling a lot after then. Um, but when this happened with my arthritis, because I had all of these things going on for so many years, like it was at least 10 years of having these symptoms happening, and me going to doctors and saying something's wrong with me. And then they're like, no, nothing wrong with you. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm probably going to die, and you're all just sitting there just telling me there's nothing wrong with me, but whatever, let's just see how it goes, And because I didn't even know really what arthritis was. Like, I didn't think that that's what it could be. Um, and then when it got really bad, so it just got worse and worse and worse. And there was a few years where it was just like, yeah, it just got really crazy, and it was like an explosion. Everything exploded. It was so terrifying, and I still didn't know what was wrong. I was starting to get a few answers. Um, and I was going to the emergency, and also some of the people there were being nice. Some of them were asking me why I was there. Um, and I had to, yeah, so that was terrifying basically. And there was like a good, like, maybe 4 months where I was like in, like, out of this world pain. Like, it's just traumatizing pain. Like, I just remember feeling like, how is this even, like, possible to be in this much pain? And not only to be in that much pain, but no one's helping me. Like, no one even, like my GP was doing as much as he could. He doesn't know what's happening, and he's giving me steroids and all this stuff. And Um, and but like even I would go to the hospital because it would be so bad, and I'm like, I'm too scared to be at home. This pain is too fucking bad. I can't be at home. I wanted them to just take me into the hospital, but they didn't want to because there's nothing they can do for me. And I'm just thinking, okay, so I'm going to go home and suffer at home, and I don't even know what is wrong. I think the scariest part is like the pain was so bad, and I didn't know what was causing it, and I was scared that like, is this permanent damage that's happening? I'm thinking like I'm going to lose my legs. I'm never going to be able to walk again, like because I couldn't barely walk. Couldn't drive for a certain amount of time. Like, I couldn't even look after my kids. I just remember I'd be lying there and just thinking, like, is this how it's going to be for the rest of my life? Like, I'm not going to be able to take my kids to school. Like, it was like I felt like my life was over. Um, but I finally, after months of this living like that, I got in to see a specialist. The first one wasn't helpful, so I had to wait another month and see another one. And finally, the ball got rolling, and I started. She diagnosed me with the ankylosing spondylitis, and I started the medication for that. And then it just slowly got better and better. But that for me was like, yeah, that was my ultimate rock bottom. And I think that was the start of like a whole new life for me. And I think as well, like going through that pain and coming out the other side was like, holy shit, like I actually went through that, like, and I am a fucking warrior. Like, I'm just like, I'm so strong. And I had the same feeling after I gave birth to my kids. Probably a lot of women would have that feeling, like after you give birth, it's so obviously it's scary, it's so fucking painful, but afterwards you created a life, and you're just like, whoa, like I did that, like I'm amazing. And so I had that feeling again. And it was like at this point where I'm like, I don't care anymore about all of the things that were holding me back. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I was like, I don't care anymore. They're not important to me. Like I'm just now, like it was kind of like a second chance at life for me. Like when I started feeling better, and I was like, I'm making the most of life now. And yeah, and that's when it's just like slowly gotten better and better for me.
Yeah, no, I love that because you can see the excitement as you talk about that, where, you know, those moments where it did start getting better. And I'm sure, that diagnosis and finally being able to start solving that problem or getting medicine for that problem was a huge relief. And being able to come through that pain probably just gave you all the strength in the world. I know, watching my wife give birth and to our two sons, I the power that you must feel in that moment must be extraordinary, because all I'm thinking is, nah, I could never. There's no chance I could ever handle that. And I really like hearing the how from the beginning of our conversation to right now, just how your self-talk, right, has changed into, this doubt, these insecurities, the struggle to being able to let go of some of those things, being able to look at yourself as powerful and, strong and deserving of being loved and happy. And to me, that's a really cool thing just to see in our conversation that, that we've been having through this time. So kind of getting some of that, was there other things that you started to add to your toolbox or other resources you started to use? And did it always just keep going up, or did you have some moments where it was like, oh shit, this is kind of back again?
Um, it definitely wasn't always going up. Like I've definitely like it's still been a struggle. And so that happened. And then it was about a year after I split up with my kid's dad. So he was my only ever boyfriend. We were together for 12 years. Um I was with him since I was 16 years old. And so we split up and it was devastating for me. I never thought we were ever going to break up. I thought we were going to be together forever, even though we had a lot of problems in our relationship. And I was, I think we both weren't feeling fulfilled. I thought, we're going to be together forever. So we broke up, and that was very difficult. I didn't know how I was going to live without him, because I never had lived without him. And so that was a huge hurdle, and that I guess that was just another obstacle that I overcame. And even getting through that, it was another thing where I just felt like, oh my God, I got through that, like it's like, yeah, like I'd never thought I was going to get through that, but I did. And it just gave me a lot of strength. And I think even with that as well, like, because I used to drink a lot of alcohol as well. So like when I stopped smoking weed, I would just drink alcohol every day. And I wasn't always getting like really drunk, but I was definitely drinking every day. And I mean, I would have a few drinks and go to the gym and like do a gym workout, like I would just be drinking. Like I just was very reliant on alcohol and even sleeping tablets when they would give them to me. And when I split up with him, I couldn't drink alcohol anymore. I just felt like every time I drank, I would be so emotional. And I was scared of them. Like it was too emotional. I was too scared. And I just didn't feel safe being under the influence of alcohol alone in the house with the kids. And so I had to stop drinking. And I still would drink every now and then. Now I actually haven't drank at all for like the last few months. Because the alcohol does also affect my arthritis as well. So stopping drinking was like a huge turning point for me as well. And it was so hard because I have nothing to numb my pain. I definitely am not smoking weed on my own. Like I don't like weed anymore. So I'm definitely not smoking weed. I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm not taking any sleeping tablets, and I'm just sitting with the feelings. And it was so fucking hard, but that's what I had to do. And that's where the healing has come from, is feeling the emotions. And then I guess during that time, it's just been this gradual, process of healing. And I've still struggled a lot, but it's just every day it's just getting a little bit better. And I'm just, I'm doing really good now. And it's still hard. Like I still feel triggered all the time. And when I'm feeling triggered, I'm feeling these emotions and this adrenaline running through my body. But I'm at a place where I'm aware that I'm being triggered. And I'm starting to realize what my triggers are. And I'm starting to like deal with it instead of trying to run away from it. I'm starting to deal with the pain.
Yeah, no, hearing you say that with the alcohol and the weed, that's something I've had to do in my life is give up those things that I would use to numb any feeling I had and to run away from any emotion or feeling that crept up. And so having to sit in your emotions sometimes is like the shittiest thing. But it also helps us grow, right? Because and I love that you just said that you're aware of what you're feeling and what's going on around you, and what your triggers or reactions are and why they are that way. And I think that's what helps us with that growth, even though we're still going to struggle, right? It doesn't mean, as you're working through this process, as you're working on your emotions, your mental health, doesn't mean things are always just going to be, sunshine and rainbows, that you're going to still have those hard moments. But you can get through those hard moments. Those hard moments aren't going to last a lifetime, and I think that really shows with your resilience in dealing with, their arthritis, the, splitting up from your partner, dealing with those different challenges that you faced. You can say now for that next challenge you're going to face in life, like, okay, I got through all this. I'm a strong ass woman. I can get through that next thing. You know, it might suck, it might be a little hard, but I can continue to push through that and grow as you go through life. Um, so I do want to, you know, kind of point out too what you're doing with Instagram and your niece a little bit with um, you know, bringing awareness to teen mental health, and just kind of ask you a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So my niece Caitlin, she has been living with me for about 3 years now, and she's had a lot of her own mental health struggles, and so she's lived a similar but different life to what I live. And so so she's been living with me and my children, and I've just been, I guess, trying to support her while she's also doing her own healing. And so mental health is a topic we're both very passionate about. So we've just started at the moment, just like an Instagram page called Hi Little Butterfly. And at the moment, we're just like creating, just talking about mental health and creating awareness and I guess educating as well. Um, but yeah, so like in the future, we want to do some like days where we can get girls together and we can talk about our feelings, and maybe we can even do some workshoppy type of things, or we can, you know, educate them, um, and also have fun as well, and and an opportunity for girls to like connect and feel connected. Um, and yeah, and I guess like I'm not sure exactly where we're going to go with this, but like I would love to like eventually maybe even take this and go around to schools and do like talks at schools and things like that. Um, but yeah, at the moment we're just kind of in the place where we're just kind of talking about mental health and creating awareness about it. Yeah.
Does that help with your healing process as well and your
Yeah,
recovery process?
definitely. Yeah. Like I even like on my own Instagram, like I post a lot of things about mental health on there, and it helps me so much. Like it's just like this release. Like every time I write anything about my struggles, um, it's not about like I'm gonna put it out there. It's really more about like a lot of the time about just me like letting that out, you know. And then hopefully by me letting that out as well, like other people were gonna relate to that, and it might help them in some way as well.
Yeah, and you know, I can relate to that a lot as well. And I think that there's something about that vulnerability, right? Of just saying, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I've struggled with. You know, this is what I'm dealing with in my life. Maybe I'm doing well, maybe I'm not. But there's something about, you know, sharing that vulnerability that can be really healing. And then, you know, like you just said, sometimes you have a reaction to where somebody can relate to it, or somebody, you know, can say, oh, you know, I've been there, or I'm there right now. Thank you for sharing that. And then that just adds to that healing process a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I keep kind of thinking a lot about lately is just like with men, I just think it's a lot about like, becoming aware of yourself, learning about yourself and about your body and your past experiences and your triggers. And like the more I learn about myself, the more healing happens. And I think that's also what I want to like kind of do with the High Little Butterfly, is like I want to have that emphasis on like teaching girls how to start tuning into their own body and like really learning about themselves, and like how they're really truly feeling, and what they really really want to do in life. Because I think it's taken me a long time to get to that place where I'm starting to like become more self-aware. And I don't and it's not easy. Like I think it's hard to even know that that's what you can do, you know, unless like you're seeing other people doing it, you don't really know that that's what you should be doing.
Especially when you're young, and I think
Yeah.
that's I think that's what's really cool about that focus for you guys and working with your niece is just that idea of showing that, because I know there's things that maybe if I had the tools or the resources I would have known when I was a teenager, maybe I wouldn't have relied on drugs so much, and I wouldn't have relied so much on running and hiding from my problems or numbing those feelings. I would have had healthier ways to deal with those, and so I think what you're doing and sharing those experiences and that awareness, and that it's okay to feel those things and it doesn't last forever, and these are different ways you can continue to work on that. I think is a really awesome message and powerful to do. So as we get close to wrapping up, I am gonna, just so everybody knows, if you want to go check out more of what Laura is doing, I'm gonna put the links to her Instagrams and TikTok in the description. So go and check out Hi Little Butterfly and what that's all about. Is there anything that you want to kind of end with before I ask you to share something with us to end us out? Is there anything else you wanna say or leave with?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's so much to say really, but like I guess just like the biggest thing that I like would want to say is like if you are, struggling, like there is like you can feel better. Like, like and even when you're in that place when it's like it doesn't feel like you're ever gonna feel better or you can ever like get out of that really dark place that you're in, like you can. And I always like to just say, you just got to hang in there, like just hang in there and like, and just keep doing the work and it will get better, and we don't know how long it's going to take. But just, yeah, just hang in there.
I love it. That's a great way to put that, and a great message to end with. But I do want to ask you. So Laura shared a very well written poem with me that she wrote, and I thought it would be a really cool way to end this episode of her sharing this poem. I thought it was really awesome. So I'd like to ask you now, Laura, if you would share that poem with us.
Okay. Uh, okay. Um, Here we go. Okay. The eyes are the windows to the soul, and her soul is on display for all. She isn't ashamed of her inner feelings. She doesn't feel the need to hide her pain or insecurities. She she is the little girl who never felt safe, the little girl who never felt heard, the little girl who never felt she was enough, the little girl who never gave up. She is the little girl who always blamed herself, the little girl who tried to be strong for everyone else. She is the little girl who does not let her pain or past define her, the little girl that became the protection she so desperately desired. She is the little girl who did not get the chance to be a little girl. She is the little girl who is now not so little. She is now a woman, one with great resilience. She is a woman who has gained insight into a world no one should visit. She describes it as a blessing of great, invaluable lessons. She is a woman who is learning to love all parts of herself, a woman who can laugh, who wants to be free, a woman who really likes to be silly. She is a woman who is in love with the process. She is addicted to the growth. She is a woman who knows the healing will never end. She is a woman who does not care to pretend. The
Awesome.
end.
Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing that. I think that's wonderful and really well written. So thank you everybody for joining us on another journey segment of Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. And again, go check out what Laura is doing as well. And have a great rest of your day.